Okay, we're back with another build guide for a faction that's poopy. And this faction used to be my second best, and now it is not anymore, so I have to get help. And we got Blood Penguin, or Plague Penguin, or whatever he wants to be called now. How you doing?
Hello. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. We definitely weren't already talking about Empire a bunch before I hit record, so this is the first time we're having this conversation. Uh, if anyone out there doesn't know the format, slash you, but I already kind of told you, we're going to go through every single unit on the roster and just talk about its like use case, regardless of what patch we're on, because this video needs to last at least more than one patch. And then at the end, I'll ask Blood Penguin some more patch specific stuff, like if you were fighting greenskins, just theoretically make up a build, that kind of thing. But the first half of this is just going to be talking about what these units like literally do and when you should hopefully take them. All right, up you're up, sir. I'm just gonna
All right. Do
stay
we want to start
quiet.
with lords or
Yep,
infantry?
lords.
All right, lords. So first we got the general of the empire. So he's basically just a support hero. He has some nice abilities, but he's just a cheap guy. You can throw him on a griffin. Same with Boris and Franz, who are both kind of a better version of him. Boris can bring his Mid-Inland Runefang, which gives him healing, which is really nice if you want to bring a different caster. Because the big problem with Franz and the General of the Empire is that they can't heal themselves. Franz is an excellent duelist with great uh, combat buffs, but his inability to heal himself basically locks you into the life caster, whereas Boris allows you to stretch out a little bit more. And then the Master Engineer is you pretty much are only going to see this guy on his Steam Tank mount, because Steam Tanks are great. But he also locks you into a life caster because you really want to heal him.
Hmm.
Uh, Moving on to the Huntsman General. So this is just baby Wolfheart. Wolfheart has some abilities that are okay, but Wolfheart's better in every way. He has uh, more damage, better stats, but the Huntsman General is cheap. That's his superpowers. If you take off everything, he's only 750 gold, and you do not care about this man whatsoever.
Oh wow, I didn't realize Wolfheart has armor piercing shots, whereas the
Yeah, no,
Huntsman
I mean that's
doesn't.
what makes him so much better than the Huntsman General. Is the Huntsman General doesn't have the AP shots, and the Wolfheart does have AP shots.
Damn.
So even though it says that his missile strength, Wolfheart's missile strength is lower, that is lying to you. Wolfheart hits so much harder.
Okay. Okay. But what about Crown of Command?
Oh, what about what?
What about Crown of
Crown of Command.
Command?
Oh yeah, the greatest ability in the game. You can give a unit unbreakable, which it's just completely useless for the Huntsman General to ever have.
All
It's
right.
one of the worst abilities in the entire game.
But
So,
the Archlector also has it, so I bet you feel silly now.
yeah, the Archlector is another guy who's just he is just baby Volkmar. He's basically worse than Volkmar in every way. He's cheaper than Volkmar, so give him props there. But Volkmar can importantly heal himself, and he can also be put on the War Altar, which makes him unbreakable. Now that did recently get buffed, but it's still bad, unfortunately.
But it was pretty great through like all of Warhammer 2,
Oh,
so
he was so good in Warhammer 2, yeah.
maybe it'll be great again.
Yeah, if Soulfire, Grand Soulfire ever becomes like actually strong again so that it can clear out infantry, then I can definitely see Volkmar making a comeback because he is somewhat tanky. He's got good armor, good HP, and uh, he's got healing. So, and with the Grand Shield of Faith, that can give him 20% damage resistance. He can be really tanky. His problem is that he's slow. He's a big target, and he is shockingly bad at clearing out infantry, which is supposed to be his only, like, his big thing.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then for the final Empire Lords, you have your Caster Lords. So this is Balthazar Gelt and Elspeth. Balthazar is
The best.
he's really strong right now. He can be really fast and hard to kill on his Quicksilver, the Pegasus mount. And Final Transmutation is great single target. Searing Doom is great for clearing out infantry pockets or cavalry pockets. And he's just nice, he's cheap, and he's your caster, so you can build a wider army with him. Elspeth, you can sort of do the same thing. You can throw her on a horse if you want and make her cheap. That's not... That's an okay way of using her. She is also, like, if you want to pay, like, an incredible amount of money, you can put her on her dragon, and the only thing that she does there is completely murder any lord or hero on the enemy, on the other side. And it's currently kind of unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you pay a lot for her, so it's not an auto win to put her on the dragon, but it is very unfair when you just breath attack, Spirit Leech, and Death's Timekeeper. Death's Timekeeper, though, it is a Spirit Leech that heals her. The healing is really bad, so don't rely on that healing. You won't be able to afford a life caster with her, so still be careful with her. But she is a extremely viable Lord pick. Their heroes,
viable.
the Empire heroes, are going to be a lot faster because most of these guys are not viable, unfortunately. The Empire Captain is kind of bad. He's like a paladin on Britannia, but bad. His best use is if you want to throw him on an Imperial Pegasus mount. He can disrupt backlines. I would suggest removing all of his abilities because none of them are great. He can be thrown on a Warhorse to also be okay, but the Engineer is the best Empire hero by a lot. He has 360 shooting. He can be very annoying. And good at sniping characters or kiting if you wanted to do that style. His Warhorse is just better than his Mechanical Steed, unfortunately. Never bring that. But yeah, these guys are very strong. Witch Hunters are unfortunately very bad. Their accusation used to be a Spirit Leech effect, which was great in Warhammer 2. But now it's a weird debuff that gets rid of physical resist, missile resist, melee defense, armor. So this is just... They got a recent buff with Tools of Judgment and Grim Resolve, but unfortunately they're just a confused unit because they have their 360 shooting, they can run and kite, but they can't get on a mount. They're okay at melee, but they're not great at it. So for right now, avoid these guys. If they ever get buffed, you can look at them again. But Warrior Priests are super baby Archlectors. They do the same thing. They're also kind of bad because, again, Soulfire is just not great at clearing infantry. Wizards are wizards. They're the same on every roster. Bring one every game. And then their legendary heroes are all just... They're really expensive. Is their biggest collective problem. Do you want me to go over each one individually, or?
I think people know what Gotrek and Felix do at this point. What's Bruckner's deal? Does he have any use?
I mean, theoretically, he's a really good duelist. He's like, if an Empire captain was actually good. In practice, he's just extraordinarily expensive and not nearly worth his price point. He's got good combat buffs, a really strong debuff, but not worth it, unfortunately.
Why is Stormlance limit 2 uses?
That is an excellent question. It really shouldn't be. It only lasts 32 seconds. It's basically just what is that sword called? The the Sword of Antiheroes. It's basically like a slightly stronger Sword of Antiheroes.
Limit 2 uses.
And it's only got 2 uses. So, I can't answer that question. It's one of those CA mysteries.
All right. And then Ulrika's on multiple rosters, but
Yeah.
I haven't talked about her yet in this series. What's her deal?
She's a Shadows caster, which is nice. She also has 360 shooting and a ton of abilities, including the Hunger for vampires and Buy Our Blood, which are both really, like, they're nice abilities, but unfortunately you pay for all of them. Her
Yeah.
Dancing Blades dueling ability is also great, but she falls into the problem of having like the Witch Hunter, she's a confused character because she wants to kite and shoot, but she also wants to fight in melee. The only thing that she has that's better than the Witch Hunter in like every way is that she's a spellcaster, so you don't need to bring a spellcaster in addition to her, and she can get on a horse, so she can get into the fight. She's fine. You won't be completely trolling by bringing her, but generally she's not worth it because you want to go wide with your army, which is how the Empire wins games generally with their army.
Gotcha.
All right, speaking of army, infantry. Your basic state troops are spearmen with and without shields, and swordsmen. They're all excellent. Spearmen with shields have an incredible melee defense. They're really good at holding the line. If you want to go slightly cheaper, you can just drop their shields. That's no problem. Same thing. This is an excellent unit. Swordsmen are really good for their price. They're generally stick with spearmen just because they have better melee defense. They hold slightly longer, and you're not winning frontline engagements, but swordsmen are an excellent frontline unit. Halberdiers are another excellent unit. They have great melee defense. They have armor piercing, which is really important in a lot of matchups, and they're just a really strong secondary line. So once your front line breaks, then they run into your halberds, and they run into an equally hard unit to break through. Flagellants are unbreakable, so they are extraordinary. They're impossible to break through. In theory. In practice, these guys are unfortunately really, really hamstrung by the fact that they have literally 0 armor, and their melee defense is 12. So they combat the melee defense with their ability, the Strength of the Penance, which is, if they're losing combat, they gain 14 melee defense and 15 physical resistance, which leads to like a hilarious thing where they are only getting their stat buff if they're losing combat. So against units that they can beat handily, they'll take an incredible amount of damage because they'll stay at 12 melee defense the whole fight and they'll just trade really heavily. And against units that are just way better than them, they'll still lose horribly because they have no armor. Even if they gain some physical resistance and some melee defense, they'll still lose horribly. So they're struggling right now. They're also extraordinarily susceptible to arrow fire.
But they have permanent frenzy.
They do have permanent frenzy, which is on paper excellent, but in practice just completely pointless because it actually helps them win melee fights, which keeps their melee defense down.
True. All right. That makes me sad.
Great. Yeah. Sigmar's Sons they're such an excellent unit. They're also unbreakable. They're the Regiment of Renown for the Swordsman. these guys were great in Warhammer 2 because spearmen with shields used to cost 25 gold more at 375, which meant that you could bring this swordsman for the price of a unshielded and a shielded spearman. Now they're the price of 2 shielded spearmen, and that alone has taken them out of the meta. Because it is always better to have 2 spearmen than Sigmar's sons. So these guys are great, but they're sad right now. If they lost 25 gold off their price, they would come back into the meta immediately.
25
Great
gold
swords.
makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, it's actually really funny that that's what took the Sigmar Sons out of every Empire build. Like a 25 gold off on every other frontline unit, but sometimes it just happens like that.
Sometimes it do be like that.
And then the last basic unit is the Great Swordsman. These guys are situational. If you know that your enemy's going to have a lot of armored infantry, they're great. They're really good at dealing with armored infantry. They're really bad at dealing with anything else. So against dwarves, they're great. Against Cathay, they're okay. And unless you're very confident that you're going to be fighting armored infantry exactly, I would recommend avoiding them. They are very niche, but they are good at that niche. They've received multiple buffs over time, and they've finally found their purpose.
Woo.
And the Tattersouls have all the problems of they're the ROR of the Flagellants. They have all the same problems, but they do gain 40 models, so they die slower, which can be fun.
Nice.
But where the Empire really shines is their missile infantry. So these guys are the ones who are going to carry most of your games, unless you're going for a kite build, then missile cavalry, which we'll get to later. But first missile infantry is archers. These dudes are just kind of bad. They're really, really cheap, and that's the best thing you can say about them. You get what you pay for. 130 range, but they're really outshined by some of the other Empire shooting. Free Company militia are really short range, but they have the same model count as a normal infantry unit, so these guys can deal a lot more damage than an archer, which only has 90 models. These guys have the full 120. They have okay melee stats, but you don't want to be using them in melee. You want to try to get their shots off if you can. They're situational in matchups. You don't want to bring them in matchups where you're going to get outshot, and you don't want to rely on them solely to deal the damage because their missile strength is still low. But they can be really good as a backliner for clearing out Furies if that's something that you're afraid of. Crossbows are... They're a good unit. They're just outshone by the Huntsmen, who have pretty much everything that the crossbowmen have, but better. Their spread formation actually helps them against mortars, against Burning Head, against any magic that can hurt them. And Huntsmen also are stalked, which means that they aren't spotted by the enemies until they get close enough. So they're able to get their first shots off before an enemy is able to kill them with mortars. Whereas crossbowmen are just blown away by mortars. But if you're not afraid of long range damage or of magic killing your archers, then crossbowmen are a very solid substitute. Handgunners have line of sight problems. This is just all gun units have this problem in Warhammer 3. Hopefully it's gotten better throughout the game's lifespan. But it still can come up, and it can come up in extremely important engagements. If your front line's being overrun, or if you just need them to shoot into a melee. They can have some serious problems doing that, but they do have excellent damage output, and it does make them worth it sometimes, even though you do have to make sure that you have lanes of fire open for them. They deal they pack a serious punch, and they can really carry a game for you. Which their ROR version, the Silver Bullets, is just a better version of handgunners in every way. They're better damage output, and they also have stock like the Huntsman, so they can't be dealt with before they get their shots off. So the Silver Bullets are fantastic because they will always get their first shot off. What happens to them after their first shot? Well, try not to lose them, but they're excellent. Yeah, usually as soon as someone sees the Silver Bullets, they're like burning head.
Rip.
The ROR of the Free Company, the Stirland's Revenge, also has the stock. So Huntsman, Stirland's Revenge, and Silver Bullets are their three like sneaky units. These guys are all great. Stirland's Revenge, they're just expensive. That's their only weakness. But they're an excellent unit. If you just want Free Company, but you want it to be good, bring the Stirland's Revenge. Null and Ironsides are unfortunately awful.
Finally, someone else will say it.
They're awful because they only have 60 models. So, as I was saying with the archers, and most range units have 90 models. What makes the Free Company good is that they have 120 models. What makes Ironsides terrible is that they have 60 models. So even though you get like an increase in missile strength, whoop-de-doo, you actually are losing missile strength because you have less guys shooting. Thank you.
If you believe my YouTube chat,
fewer guys shooting.
If you believe my YouTube chat, Null and Ironsides are OP, and I'm just a hater.
Your YouTube chat is trolling you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. What the hell are the Hergig? Oh wait, the Hergig Jaeger Corps are not Null and Ironsides.
No, they're long rifles. Yeah, this is actually my big pet peeve with the new rifle units. Is they all hold like handgunners, Null and Ironsides, and Hochland long rifles. All like their portraits all hold the guns the same way. It's really annoying for me.
I legit thought the Hergig Jaeger Corps were Hochland long rifle. Were Ironside RRs, not Hochland long rifles.
Yeah, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that because they look exactly like Null and Ironsides. They look exactly like Null and Ironsides, actually, except that their feathers on the other side. So you know. But no, the Jaeger Corps is Hochland long rifle RR, and Hochland long rifles are great because they have extremely long range. They're just Giselles on the Skaven roster. They're very good. There's not much to say about them. Long range, good damage. They're very squishy, so you got to be careful with them, but they are a fix-all unit of the Empire and a staple. The Jaeger Corps is just more expensive. They get Shield Breaker, but generally it's not worth taking them because you're just paying 300 more for a unit that's basically the same.
I think they're supposed to be the Null and Ironsides and the Hawk long rifles put together because they have Black Powder Discipline and the same armor as Null and Ironsides, but they have the range of Hawk long rifles.
Ah, you might be right. I've never actually thought about that. That's what's their melee stats comparatively? They're pretty close to Null and Ironsides too. Yeah, they are. I mean, the problem is they also have the HP of and the model count of a Hochland long rifle, so
we don't focus on that.
I guess their melee stats don't really matter when you've got less than 3,000 or you've got less than 4,000 HP.
Yeah, you're just gonna die.
Yeah, you're gonna die so quickly in melee. But the missile units, those are the units that will generally carry your battles. But to protect those, you need the cavalry, which is the Empire just works on you bring a mixed roster because none of their units in isolation are completely OP or just a win the game unit. I mean, Hawkman Long Rifles being the closest unit that we've talked about as an exception. But it's using all of your units together to win the fight. That's like what makes the Empire a strong faction, is that they have so many different options. And their cavalry is how you keep all of these options open. Like, to make sure that your missile units aren't being overrun, and to make sure that your front line isn't being just run over. But Empire Knights are really, really good at that. They are extraordinarily unimpressive on their own merits. They have mid stats. They have good armor, decent leadership, but what they're really good at is holding. They just roadblock any threat to the rest of your army, and they do it at the cheapest price point that the Empire has. For 850, this is like on the Empire roster, this is excellent. You usually want at least 2 Empire Knights in every build, just to make sure that everything is staying alive. Reiksguard suffer from the fact that Empire Knights exist. They're basically the same unit, they're just better in every way, but you're also paying for more of. And Knights of the Black Rose are the Knights of the Black Rose are the real upgrade from the Empire Knights, because they are excellent at holding the line, because they have an extremely high melee defense at 50, and they have immune to psychology, which means that they're not going anywhere. But you are paying 400 more for them. But that's why Reiksguard get left behind, because they're in the awkward spot between the cheap and effective and the expensive and effective. Knights of the Blazing Sun, though, sit kind of in the middle there, where they actually have their own niche, which allows them to see play where the Reiksguard don't, which is that they have an extremely high charge bonus, they have flaming attacks, and they have spell resistance, importantly. So if you're afraid of getting like Fate of Bunad or Soul Stealered against the Dark Elves, that 25 spell resistance can be clutch and making sure that your knights stay on the field. And then Demigryph Knights. Yay, these guys, I've been a Demigryph Knight enjoyer forever. They recently got buffed. The Demigryph Knights normal lance and shield variant, they have a shield, which the Demigryph Knights with halberds don't. And they're better statted than halberd Demigryph Knights in every way. The reason that the Demigryph Knight halberds are better, usually, is because their bonus versus large is extraordinarily high at 25 and allows them to just win cavalry engagement. And if the Empire is winning cavalry, it can win all the cavalry engagements and take over the mobile game. That's how you keep by winning the mobile game, you keep your missiles alive. And by keeping your missiles alive, you destroy the enemy's infantry and their lords. And then once their infantry and lords are gone, you've won the game.
Got it.
And then if you're like, I don't trust my ability to keep my missile infantry alive, they're slow and I have to keep moving them and it's bad. Then you can go to cavalry. You can put those guns on horses. And pistoliers are your cheap option. These guys are dirt cheap. They have 360 shooting and they're fast. They're really, really good at what they do, which is just be annoying. But they are very, very squishy, so they will die very quickly. Outriders are just pistoliers that hit harder, but they only shoot one direction. So you just need to be more careful with them. They still suffer from being extremely squishy, and the grenade launchers hit extremely hard versus infantry, but they're just short range. And also shoot in only one direction. War wagons were when Warhammer 3 came out, war wagons were so oppressive. If anyone was around during that time, they probably have flashbacks to this unit. They deal a ton of damage. They have 360 shooting, and They are hard to kill, but they've received a lot of nerfs over the lifespan of Warhammer 3, and they are now sit at just being an extremely mid unit. They're okay as a firing platform. Mortar wagons are, if you want a mortar that can move, that's basically it. And the ROR version, the Black Lions, is a Hellblaster volley gun. This can deal a ton of damage, and it can reposition, which can be great. But they also are very squishy, so you do need to constantly be moving them. You can't let this unit get caught because it is 1900 gold, and if it gets caught and killed without getting any value, then you sink so much money into it.
War machines?
Alright, finally, war machines and artillery. So, artillery on the Empire is, if you're bringing artillery, you want to have your more static build. So more infantry, missile infantry, and cavalry focus. You're probably not going to be seeing a lot of those missile cavalry. But mortars are, if they hit things, they're really good. The problem is that a lot of times these mortars have had problems with actually hitting units. They miss a lot. I don't know exactly why. If their accuracy is ever increased, these will be a staple at taking out enemy backline units. Cannons have received a really strong buff with Elspeth's addition to the game. They're good at taking out other enemy artillery, their war machines, cavalry. Their biggest weakness is that they're just static. Where Hawkland long rifles can move, these guys can't. Hellblaster volley guns are cannons with shorter range that deal more damage. These guys can be used against infantry, against cavalry. They're basically against everything. It's what you get with the Black Lions, and the Black Lions can move, so if you wanted to pay more money, you can do that. Hellstorm rocket batteries are mostly seen in their RR version. The Hellstorm rocket, or the Sunmaker, deals a ton of damage. Fires off a bunch of rockets that are great against anti-infantry. Not so much against anything else. And the Luminarchs are good against character sniping. Not much else. The ROR version gives you a net, which is great. And then there are the two units that you hear the most about with the most controversy are Landships and Steam Tanks. These guys are unbreakable, and they shoot while moving, which it can be, and they're very, very tanky. If they aren't banned, these are both have the potential of being very, very oppressive units. The Landship can shoot in all directions. It has a cannon and rifle fire. If you take the ROR, it has grenade launchers. The Steam Tank has a cannon on the front, a steam gun on the top, and both of them act as chariots and can run through almost unlimited amounts of infantry. The Steam Tank also has a ton of armor and missile resistance, which makes it very, very hard to kill the small arms fire. And they are extremely powerful units. But they are very expensive, and if you bring them, you will want a life caster. But they are usually worth, unless you are afraid of a ton of enemy armor piercing. And with that, that's the end of that's every unit on the Empire.
Bam.
Individually.
So, can you make a slot on your side so I can hop over?
I can make a slot on your side and hop over.
Okay. Alright, so let's pretend you're playing Empire and you gotta fight Norska. Go.
Alright. So Norska, you got a couple ways to go about it. My
This is
favorite
on
lords in this.
current patch of 6.0.
Yes, my favorite lords against Norska are Karl Franz because he's a really, really strong duelist and he can buff up my forces, or Boris because Boris is good at causing terror, and Norskans have a lot of low leadership units. So I'm gonna go Boris here. I'm gonna take Crush the Weak. So enemies that drop below 50% leadership are gonna get even lower, even less leadership, and they're gonna get a stat debuff. I'm gonna take the Midland Rune Fang, and I'm gonna take him on his Griffin. So he's really cheap at only 2,000 gold. And for magic against Norska, the best magics are either Fire to burn away their infantry, or Death because their lord, if it's Wolfric, generally doesn't have healing, so you can just keep spirit leeching him. I generally like Fire because I like to keep my frontline clean of Marauders. And for my frontline, I'm gonna just slam 4 Spearmen immediately. I really, really like the Silver Bullets in this matchup because their magic attacks, their magical shots get through the physical resistance of any skin wolf that you might see. And Huntsmen are also fantastic because they just can shred the light armored units. If they bring Berserkers, if they bring Marauder Horsemen. But you got to keep all the up, so we're going to get some Empire Knights, and Knights of the Blazing Sun are so especially good in this matchup because their fire attacks are really strong against the Skin Wolves, which you generally see. Now Norscan players are wising up to this, and sometimes will avoid bringing Skin Wolves for specifically this unit, but just because they might not bring the Skin Wolves, Knights of Blazing Sun are still a fantastic unit, and if they do bring Skin Wolves, well, then we've got a great counter unit there. So I'm going to put some Halberds as a secondary line. And now that I've only got 950 gold left, so I got to round out this roster. I'm going to bring probably a little bit more in the front line. And 600 gold.
Flagellant.
I'm
kidding.
I mean, if you want, you can have some fun with a flagellant. I'm probably another halberd person, and then with the 50 golds, you can either go 2 swordsmen or some chevrons. No, 1 gold off. Oh, gotta redo the entire army now.
Chevy Chevs.
But my caster is on foot. That's another consideration. I could bring him on a horse. I generally keep him on foot just to keep him cheap, and I'm gonna leave him in the front line anyways. I have Fireball and Burning Head. Cut fire if you want. It's not the most important spell. I just bring it because I've had too many situations where it's only my caster versus the enemy lord left. And I want to have something that can deal with that. Also, the single entity meta is here. And Fireball is just a solid deal damage to a single target. So I would go with a build like this. The Cavalry is going to keep anything off of the Huntsman. You can get some charges into exposed Marauders. The Burning Head can make sure that your front line holds against the Marauders, against better units. And once the front line is held, you can shift the infantry around to keep your Huntsmen and your Silver Bullets firing. Because this whole game is going to revolve around keeping these 3 units alive. Or, if you can't keep them alive, make the Norscan army pay for taking them out. Now, you are going to have to deal with, they're going to Burning Head you, and if Wolfric is on the map, he's going to try to boat you. They might target the front line, they might target your back line.
Boats. Well, that's what you do if you get rushed. What if you get shot at? Grand Cathay.
Grand Cathay, so Grand Cathay is actually, I bring Boris here as well, but I do cut Crush the Weak because their high morale means that it's generally not worth it. And I really like Shadow's magic here. I've actually been bringing Pendulum, but Melkaz is usually a safer bet. And you can go Melkaz Pit of Shades. Metal is also an excellent pick here, and just going Searing Doom to take out their frontline units, because you want to be targeting their Cathay's frontline. If you get past their frontline units, you can start killing all their backline units and you'll win the game. Now, swordsmen are, because of the same thing, we're focusing on taking out Cathay infantry. Swordsmen are excellent here. Great swordsmen are also great here. And this is where we can bring in the Hawkland long rifles, because Cathay, they only have two styles of play, really. They're going to rush you with cavalry, or they're going to stand in a box and shoot you with like rocket batteries with their own Giselles. We can bring Hawkland long rifles. I'm actually really like just bringing basic handgunners in this matchup just because they're cheaper. And I'm going to be pressing the Cathayan army back. So I bring a bunch of knights because once our plan here is to break open holes in the Cathay's front line, and then we're going to flood into those holes. So having a bunch of knights ready to do that is important. And I'm going to cut the Great Swordsman because I really, really like having one battery that's all the way in the back. This can be susceptible to the crows, the Onyx Crowmen that they can bring. To counter that, we're going to use our handguns to make sure that the skies around us are clear. But once we have that, boom. Now we have a ton of frontline units.
8 state troops.
Yep. So a full 8 state troop frontline. We're going to basically just full press the Cathayan army. Handgunners are going to stay a little bit behind the front line and make sure that the Sunmaker can get its shots off. If they have, Cathay brings a ton of cannons and stuff, we just can leave the Sunmaker behind. It's just a distraction piece. Then we charge forward with our handgunners. We charge forward with all of our infantry. Use your magic to target down frontline units. So target down their spearmen, target down their Jade warriors. And use Boris's terror to break open small pockets. And once those pockets are open, rush through with your infantry, rush through with your cavalry, and just make sure that all of their range units stop shooting.
I see. And Theodore Bruckner fits in how?
Let's see if we can get Bruckner in here. Alright. Cut everything. Put him on his thing. Put him on his mount. And get Titan Headsman, which is his only good ability. Or is it better to give him the Banefire Amulet and run him in and then let him die so he can blow up a unit?
Just a hero bloated corpse.
Yes. That, maybe. We'll theory craft that one. Alright. Let's see. We lost an Empire Knight and one of our state troops. You know, that's fine. That actually kind of... I don't hate that.
I hate that.
And look at that. You get Theodore Bruckner in there.
Okay, the Titan Headsman, I didn't realize it could target anything, not just the Lord. I thought it was like Assassin's Trophy for the Skaven, where it's a Lord debuff. If I could debuff anything, that's more fine.
It's okay.
Yeah. I wish he was cheaper. Like, without any of his stuff, I wish he was cheaper, because then I could maybe take him as like a cav support.
Yeah, it's just like he's 1100 for like an okay melee combatant. Like, he does nothing super impressive. He causes terror, but like he's not mobile because he's just on the ground, so he's not like a Boris Todbringer type character.
Yeah.
And a
Alright.
Demi-Griffin Knight's attack animations are not anywhere close to a Griffin's attack animations.
I'll give up my dreams of Theodore Bruckner.
Hey, I think that you should look into the Balefire Amulet plays, though. I think there's something there.
I think it would work if I could kill him on command.
That's what you should... Next idea for CA. Just allow us to target fire our own units.
Just give him an ability where he can do heroic sacrifice. This unit just dies. On command, detonation.
That would be great up until you accidentally click it. Like one time.
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm winning this game. Oh, well.
But imagine the Fireborn, and you just run at them with him, and then you blow up, and no more Fireborn.
You know, I hate the Fireborn as much as the next guy who's not a high elf main, but I think there are better ways.
Like Fate of Yuna?
Yeah. Incantation of Vengeance if you're a Tomb King's enjoyer.
Can Knights of the Blazing Sun not handle the Tomb Kings?
No.
Oh.
I wish it was so. It used to be so, but
25% spell resist, just not enough?
well, it's enough for the Incantation of Vengeance. The problem is everything else on the Tomb King's roster.
Fair. They do have giant kitty cats now.
They have giant kitty cats and they have dudes with really big bows.
They've always had those.
It's true. But now it's harder to get to those guys with really big bows because you have to commit a 1,200 gold Knight of the Blazing Sun as opposed to an 850 gold Empire Knight to do it.
Fair. Well, it's past midnight here, so I'm going to go to bed. Thank you for your time, sir, and I hope people out there learned something for once in their lives.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope I was helpful.
You did great.
Oh, thanks.
Subscribe, yes, yes.